My name is Celine Aria Calder, 28 years old. For 6 months, our life felt like a movie with perfect lighting. Jordan and I met at a backyard barbecue. Paper lanterns, music leaking from a Bluetooth speaker, someone's Labrador weaving through lawn chairs like joy with a wagging tail. We found each other at the guacamole bowl, and everything after that was easy. Saturday hikes that ended in sunrise, passport stamps tucked beside inside jokes, dinners where the waiter looked at us and said, "You two are trouble in the best way." It changed in month 7. Not a crash, more like a draft of cold air you can't find the window for. It began as throwaway lines with a grin. "Livia always knew which wine to pair with duck," he said once, glancing at the menu like it might remember her too. Another night, planning a weekend cabin. Livia used to make these incredible itineraries, color-coded. We'd squeeze 3 museums into a day and somehow still nap. We were watching a show on the couch when his hand paused mid-shoulder rub. You know what was amazing? Livia's massages during movies. She had this way of pressing right here. He traced a circle on my shoulder, demonstrating a dead woman's technique, the way you'd teach a recipe. Dead is unfair. She wasn't dead, she was just everywhere. I tried honesty first. I said it softly, without a ledger. When you bring her up like that, it makes me feel like I'm standing in your past instead of your present. He apologized, kissed my forehead, promised he'd be more mindful. For 2 weeks he was. Then the ghosts pulled back their chairs. It got instructional. "You know," he said one evening at my place, twirling his fork like this was casual, "Livia used to leave little notes around the apartment, things she loved about me. It was sweet. Maybe we could try something like that." After a Saturday dishes standoff, Livia and I had a system based on schedules. Zero resentment. We could try her approach. I swallowed the lint that arguments become when you don't pull them out of your throat. "Jordan, you're not dating Livia," I said. "And I'm not an approach." He hugged me. The nice kind, the we're on the same team kind. "I know. I'm just saying what's worked for me." I told myself people reference their exes. We're archaeological sites. Of course we carry artifacts. But artifacts shouldn't become floor plans. The night it cracked was at a long table with friends, a winter restaurant that whispered fancy through candlelight and linen. Someone asked about holiday plans. My mouth was opening when Jordan jumped in, bright as a game show buzzer. "Livia had the best tradition," he said, surprising her with a weekend getaway every Christmas. Every detail planned. Maybe I should get tips again. The laugh stuck in my chest like a cork. The table went still in that microscopic way groups do when they pretend they didn't hear a thing that will ruin dessert. The heat climbed up my neck. I smiled because women know how to smile through third-degree burns. Later, in my kitchen's half-light, I asked. Not about the wine or shoulder massages, about the ending. "How did you and Livia break up?" I said, pouring water I wouldn't drink. He leaned against the counter, trying on nostalgia like a jacket. "It was mature," he said, the word landing like a sermon. We'd grown apart. I pulled back a little, not ghosting, just space, then took her to our favorite restaurant on a Thursday. I explained calmly that we'd outgrown the relationship. No drama. She cried, but she thanked me for being considerate. He looked at me as if he'd just described the Mona Lisa of breakups. Honestly, it was the kindest way possible. The kindest way possible. He said it like scripture. Something inside me clicked into alignment and then into place. 2 truths given a name. First, he wasn't over Livia. Second, he was trying to render her portrait with my face. The comparisons weren't accidents. They were instructions. He didn't want a partner. He wanted a reenactment. A strange peace found me. The kind that comes when you finally identify the draft and can close the right window. "You loved that breakup," I said, light, like I was pointing at a constellation. He smiled, remembering his own restraint. "It was respectful." Respectful, considerate, mature, the Holy Trinity. "Okay," I said. I kissed him, tasted the shape of an ending forming behind my teeth, and filed away the details. Thursday, favorite restaurant, calm tone, gentle distance. If this was the liturgy he worshipped, I would speak it back to him fluently, so he could finally hear what prayer he'd been praying. The weeks after, I moved 2 degrees to the left, not enough to feel like retreat, just enough for silence to open like a polite door. I replied to texts with warmth and space. "Just saw this," with a smile, when before I would have called. I let good morning land without a sprint to good night. I suggested separate plans on one of the days we usually fused, and when we met, I paid attention to where his eyes went when he talked, to how often her name reached for his tongue like it had a spare key. It was constant. When I brought him flowers, Livia loved ranunculus. After I cooked carbonara, Livia learned authentic Italian from a semester in Florence. He said her name like a seasoning. He sprinkled it on everything we ate. I booked the restaurant, ours now, because we'd found it on a date that had felt like possibility and panna cotta. Thursday, of course. I asked for the corner table near the antique mirror. I picked a dress he once called my serious look, the one he said made me look like I came with my own lighting. I used the tone he praised in Livia, calm, measured, the kind of voice that would never startle a skittish horse. The night before, we were at an engagement party. Champagne made everyone's honesty sparkle. Jordan held court for 20 minutes. 20. Retelling Livia's new engagement proposal he'd seen on social media. So creative, he said, eyes bright with a strange devotion. Grand gestures were his thing. He squeezed my knee as if we were sharing nostalgia. He always nailed it. I smiled my second-degree smile and looked at the clock. 22 hours until Thursday. I didn't plan this to be petty. I planned for a living. Projects, teams, outcomes. I know how to reverse engineer a result without leaving fingerprints. This wasn't a prank. It was a mirror. If he needed closure exactly as he'd canonized it, I would hand him the canon. Maybe then he'd see the altar he'd built to someone who wasn't me. On Thursday, the sky was merciful and mild. The restaurant hummed at a decibel that makes secrets feel safe, the clink of glasses and murmur of other endings in progress. He arrived buoyant. The email about his promotion had landed that afternoon. Before we'd even opened our menus, he was telling me how Livia celebrated her last promotion. A surprise party with handmade invitations. Of course. I let him finish the story. Then I smiled the way he likes, steady, kind, like I'm holding both of us in my hands without squeezing. You know, I said, matching the cadence he admired in his ex's myth, months of hearing about Livia has been enlightening. His face brightened, relief blooming. Finally, the student sees the lesson. Really? I'm glad you can take it in that spirit. I always thought if you could learn from some of her approaches. I have learned, I said, and felt the room settle, a mirror aligning with the light. I've learned what you value. I've learned you're not over her. I've learned you've been trying to recreate her with me. And most of all, I've learned exactly how to end this in a way you'll appreciate. The smile froze on his face like sugar that won't dissolve. What are you saying? I'm saying, I kept my voice even, respectful, considerate, mature. I've outgrown this relationship, and I'm ending it at our favorite restaurant with a calm explanation after a period of gentle distance, just like the method you've praised. The color left his cheeks the way sunset leaves a window, suddenly and then all at once. This isn't funny, he whispered. I'm not aiming for funny, I said. I'm aiming for clarity. He gripped his glass, knuckles white. You're breaking up with me because I mentioned my ex? I'm breaking up with you because you're still in a relationship with your ex's memory. You've spent months trying to cast me in a role I didn't audition for. He searched for a foothold. All couples learn from the past. We can fix. Did you and Livia fix? I asked gently, already knowing he'd say no. He didn't answer. I let the silence sit with us, polite as a third chair at the table. Outside, a bus sighed at a stoplight. In the antique mirror, I could see us how the room saw us. Two well-dressed people rehearsing a goodbye that looked like a hallmark of adulthood. Maybe that's why he liked Livia's method so much. Grief washed and ironed, nothing wrinkled, nothing out of place. The waitress hovered, read the weather in our faces, and disappeared like good help in a bad story. I'm not angry, I said. I just refuse to be haunted. I folded my napkin, placed it beside the plate, and stood. He didn't follow, not then. As I crossed the tile floor toward the door, the mirror caught me for a second. Woman leaving a man in soft light. Woman in a dress that knows its own power. Woman who finally found the window and closed it. Outside, the air felt like a beginning that hadn't named itself yet. The Friday after I ended things, Jordan didn't text. Not to rage, not to beg, just nothing. And somehow the silence was louder than any argument could have been. I'd prepared for fireworks, accusations, frantic apologies, maybe even a performance of heartbreak. But no, he followed the same script he'd idolized. Quiet, composed, unreadable. Livia's influence was still directing him, even in the way he handled being left. At first, I mistook the quiet for closure. I told myself the story was over. But closure is just another word for the pause before a sequel you didn't greenlight. For a week, I lived in the strange calm of absence. I worked late, started running again, slept diagonally across my bed. My phone stayed stubbornly silent. No messages, no calls, not even the half-hearted, "Hey, can we talk?" I'd half expected. It was almost disappointing. Then, on the 9th day, a knock at my door shattered the stillness. When I checked the peephole, I saw him standing there. Perfect posture, neutral expression, holding a small box. His hair was still slightly damp, the way it got when he was nervous and showered too soon before facing something. I kept the chain on. "Celine," he said softly, "you left a few things at my place." His voice was too calm, practiced. He held up the box. "I thought I'd return them personally." "Leave it on the step." He blinked, thrown off by how simple I'd made it. "Don't you even want to talk?" "No, I think you owe me that much." I almost laughed. "Jordan, you've spent months telling me what mature looks like. This, me not slamming the door or making a scene, is me being mature." He exhaled, annoyed. "You're twisting everything." "And you're still reciting everything," I said, and shut the door before he could answer. Through the wood, I heard the box land on the welcome mat, followed by retreating footsteps that didn't sound like acceptance. 2 days later, I found the first email. Subject and for reflection. From Jordan Hale, attachment, relationshipimprovementtotes.pdf. Against my better judgment, I opened it. Inside was a 5-page manifesto. Bullet points. Charts. At the top, bolded in blue, learning from proven relationship models. Notes inspired by Livia. I almost dropped my coffee. He had literally written a workbook. The notes included gems like, "Celine needs to embrace collaborative systems of affection." Affirmations twice a week. Livia loved this routine. Reinforce shared traditions to rebuild connection. I read the document 3 times, equal parts horrified and fascinated. The arrogance of thinking love could be graphed like a business plan, and the audacity of using his ex name as a footnote for my personality would have been impressive if it weren't so absurd. I didn't reply. That night, my phone buzzed with a text. "Jordan, did you get my email? It's constructive, not critical." Me. "Jordan, don't contact me again." Jordan. "You're overreacting. Livia always said feedback is how couples grow." Me. "Livia's not here, neither am I." Blocked. A week later, my best friend Mira hosted a small dinner at her apartment. I almost didn't go. Part of me suspected Jordan would somehow appear like a bad plot twist. But she promised it would just be close friends. No drama. Halfway through dessert, someone knocked on the door. When Mira opened it, her expression shifted from polite hostess to stunned disbelief. Jordan stood there with a folder under his arm. I froze. He looked around the room like he was entering a board meeting instead of crashing a dinner party. "Sorry for interrupting," he began smoothly, "but I think this is the perfect time to clear the air." "Jordan," I said through clenched teeth, "get out." He ignored me. "I've prepared something," he said, opening the folder. And then he started handing out printed photographs, us at restaurants, on trips, even one from a grocery store selfie. Each had handwritten captions like joy phase and growth opportunity. The table went dead silent. He moved to the head of the table, connected his tablet to Mira's TV with a cable, and opened a PowerPoint presentation. Yes, a PowerPoint. "Tonight," he announced, "I want to present a roadmap for reconciliation, based on data from relationship experts and, of course, personal experience." Someone muttered, "Is this really happening?" Slide 1, Stage 1, the misunderstanding. Slide 2, Stage 2, reflection and learning. Slide 3, Stage 3, reunion built on shared insight, Livia's model. When I saw her name in parentheses, something inside me snapped into stillness. Not rage, not embarrassment, just a precise kind of clarity. I pulled out my phone, scrolled, and pressed play on a voice memo labeled Thursday Dinner. It was a recording from our breakup. His voice, reverent, saying, "It was the kindest way possible. Livia said so herself." I turned the phone toward him. "You want to talk about models, Jordan?" I said evenly. "Let's play the whole documentary." I played clip after clip, Audio snippets of him praising Livia, comparing me to her, describing in detail how her breakup method was the most mature, considerate way. By the time I finished, you could have heard a pin drop on the floor. Jordan's face flushed. "You're twisting my words." Mira crossed her arms. "No, we just heard them." He fumbled with the tablet, trying to turn off the slideshow, but the screen froze on a picture of us with the caption, "Potential for Redemption." "Jordan," I said quietly, "you don't need redemption. You need release." He dropped the remote, muttered something about ungrateful, and stormed out. The door slammed hard enough to rattle the wine glasses. When the room finally breathed again, Mira leaned over and whispered, "That was horrifying and iconic." I laughed for the first time in weeks. Both things can be true. I thought that public humiliation would cure him, but the next week he sent another email. Subject, Second Chance Proposal. He'd attached a new document titled Restoration Plan 2.0. Each page had a different action item with corresponding deadlines. There were calendar links for reconciliation check-ins and emotional progress debriefs. At the bottom, a note. "I'm giving you exactly 3 chances, Celine. That's how Livia and I did it before our final breakup. It's only fair you get the same grace." That's when I realized something terrifying. He wasn't just trying to win me back. He was reenacting his breakup with her, step by step, line by line, using me as the stand-in for a play she never asked to see again. So I played my part one last time. I opened my calendar, created an automatic decline message for every invite that came from his email, and set it to respond instantly. "Sorry, I'm busy taking tips from your ex on how to maintain boundaries post-breakup." Then I pressed block. But obsession doesn't understand blocked numbers. The next move was physical. I walked into my gym one morning and nearly tripped over him at the reception desk. He'd joined as a new member, same location, same hours, same everything. When I saw him, he was holding a bright blue folder labeled Relationship Reintegration Plan. I looked him straight in the eye, loud enough for the front desk to hear. "You know what's funny, Jordan? The one thing I learned from all your stories about Livia is that she was right to leave." He froze. I gestured to the staff. "He's harassing me. I'd like to file a complaint. My next call will be the police." Color drained from his face. For the first time, he looked genuinely scared, not of me, but of how it would look when the story became official. He left without another word. That was 3 months ago. He hasn't tried to contact me since, at least not directly. Mutual friends say he's taking a break from dating to focus on growth. One even joked that he probably has a new PowerPoint titled Self-Improvement, Phase 4. Maybe he does, but I don't care. I deleted every recording, every email, every calendar invite, except one folder labeled Red Flags, Exhibit A. Not to hold over anyone, just as a reminder that when someone insists on turning your relationship into a rerun, you're allowed to change the channel. Because some people don't want love, they want an audience, and the most mature thing you can do is walk out before the credits roll. For a while, I let myself believe it was over. Silence can be deceiving that way. It sounds like peace until it starts echoing back. 2 months after the gym incident, I walked into my apartment one evening and found a small white envelope slid halfway under my door. My name was written in Jordan's handwriting, sharp, deliberate, like he thought even his cursive could convince me. Inside was a single sheet of paper. "Celine, I know we've both made mistakes. I've spent time reflecting, like Livia taught me to. I believe we owe it to ourselves to finish this story properly, the way she and I eventually did. Dinner. Thursday. Same restaurant, 7 p.m. The gall almost made me laugh. He still thought everything in his life required a sequel, that every ending needed a part 2. I didn't respond. Thursday came and went. That same night, Mira sent me a text with a photo attached. Jordan at the French restaurant, sitting alone at our corner table, 2 glasses of wine in front of him. "He's staging a reenactment," her message read. "I think he invited you to an empty play." I blocked his number again, just in case. But Jordan was inventive in the ways obsession becomes persistence dressed as sentimentality. 2 weeks later, my older sister Ava called out of the blue. "I got the weirdest message," she said cautiously. "What kind of message?" "It's from some guy named Jordan Hale," she said. "He found me on Instagram, said he's worried about you, that you're refusing to follow proper closure protocol. He sent a PDF." My pulse ticked. "A PDF?" Ava sighed. "It's titled, Why Your Sister Needs to Follow Proven Breakup Recovery Steps." My hand tightened around the phone. "What did you do?" I blocked him, but not before I downloaded it. She emailed me the document, a 10-page essay formatted like a research paper. There were citations, headings. One section was literally titled Phase 3, Constructive Reunion, modeled after Livia framework. That night, I sat at my desk with the PDF open on my laptop and felt something between rage and pity. How do you even explain to someone that they're addicted to patterns, that they've built their identity on a loop? I forwarded the file to Sophie, my lawyer, with a short note. He's escalating again. Her reply came minutes later. Document it all. Don't engage. He's building a case against his own sanity. It would have been almost funny if it hadn't been so exhausting. He wasn't violent, wasn't screaming, just relentless, like a mosquito that keeps finding you in the dark no matter how many times you move the lamp. The next stunt arrived by email, a shared calendar invite titled Relationship Restoration Timeline, Phase 1, Reconnection. I clicked View More Details. Each week had entries. Monday, Reflection Session. Discuss emotional blind spots. Livia's Step 1. Wednesday, Appreciation Exchange. Both parties list gratitude points. Saturday, Reintegration Dinner. Mirror our first date, tone, and location. There were 6 months of meetings scheduled. 6 months. I didn't even decline them manually. I set an auto-response through my email filter. Your invite has been declined. I'm busy following Livia's advice on maintaining boundaries post-breakup. Then I blocked the address. I wish I could say that stopped him. But people like Jordan don't stop. They adapt. One morning, I was halfway through my treadmill run when a shadow fell across the machine. I looked up and nearly stumbled. There he was. Sweatshirt, gym badge, clipped to his shorts, folder in hand. Celine, he said, breathless from effort or nerves. I couldn't tell. I didn't know you worked out here. That was a lie. He'd never been a member. I pulled out one earbud, my heartbeat sinking with fury. Jordan, you've got 5 seconds to step back before I make this public. He raised his hands in mock surrender. I just want to talk. I've made progress. He held up the folder, blue with a label. Relationship Improvement Strategies, based on Livia's workout routine. A laugh escaped me. Sharp, incredulous. You're not serious. I am, he insisted. Couples who train together develop stronger bonds. Livia and I. That was the trigger. Something inside me snapped cleanly, quietly. Stop saying her name, I said, my voice low but shaking. People nearby turned their heads. Jordan froze, his confidence flickering. You've spent months pretending this is therapy, Jordan, I said louder now, so everyone around could hear. It's harassment. It's stalking. And if you take one more step toward me, I'll show gym management what obsession looks like in real time. A flush crawled up his neck. Celine, I'm just trying to make this right. You're trying to make it replay. I pressed the stop button on the treadmill and stepped down, grabbing my towel like punctuation. You know what I learned from all your stories about Livia? I said. He hesitated. What? That she was right to leave you. The sentence landed like a slap. For a second, I thought he might argue, but his mouth just opened and closed like a faulty hinge. I'm reporting this, I said, to the gym, to my lawyer, and if I have to the police. He blinked, color draining. You'd really do that? Jordan, I said softly, I already did. Twice. He stared at me for a moment, then at the growing circle of onlookers. Whatever fantasy script he'd been following didn't have a scene for this. He backed away, muttering something about misunderstanding, and walked out. The next day, I received an automated email from the gym confirming that a harassment report had been filed and that his membership was suspended pending investigation. That was the first night I slept straight through until morning. 3 months have passed since then. Jordan hasn't contacted me again. Not directly, anyway. Mutual friends tell me he's working on himself, taking a break from relationships. Apparently, he's writing a book, or maybe a blog, about emotional intelligence and personal growth. I hope he finds what he's looking for, though I suspect what he really wants is an audience, not insight. As for me, I finally started dating again. The first thing I ask someone new is simple. How do you talk about your exes? It tells me everything. If they speak with venom, they haven't healed. If they speak with worship, they haven't let go. If they speak with balance, then maybe they understand what love actually is, something that doesn't live in comparison. Sometimes I still scroll through the folder labeled Evidence, Hail. Not to relive it, but to remind myself. That manipulation doesn't always yell. Sometimes it speaks softly in the language of maturity, wrapped in calm tones and neat fonts. I learned that the worst kind of ghost isn't the person who leaves. It's the one who keeps trying to rewrite the ending long after you've walked off the page. So when someone now asks me what happened with Jordan, I just smile and say, I gave him exactly what he wanted, the perfect breakup. Because in a way, that's true. I followed his favorite script line by line. But what he never understood, what Livia probably did, was that a script can't keep you if the story's already over.